You're watching the Chaos Protocol on Transplanar RPG, an all-transgender, people of color-led dark fantasy TTRPG show set in an original non-colonial, anti-Orientalist multiverse. If you like what you see, please consider pledging to our Patreon to support the show and get access to a patron-only after-show, early podcast episodes, GM notes, character sheets, and even the chance for your tabletop OC to cameo in our series. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy. The Chaos Protocol is a dark fantasy series that may contain content that is triggering for some viewers. Content warnings for this episode include complex relationships, fantasy violence, neck gore, vampirism, death, and references to large bodies of water and drowning. Arc 3, Episode 11. From Tenuous Depths. From Praying Beside the Teeth That Killed Me by Connie Chang. "'Tis but the name that is my enemy."
We are not ourselves. We are our houses.
What is a house? It is not a hand, not the thirst, not eyes, not a face, not any other part belonging to the undead.
Oh, we call it some other name.
What's in a name? That which we call a roe, by any other name would smell as sweet.
So Houselanius would, were they not named for the Shrike. Did you know that the first vampires were born here, on the banks of the Red River? Our forebears tell the tale of when the river swelled with rage and wrath and unyielding spite, thick as viscous blood sweeping away the city at its banks.
That red tide claimed many lives, but in some cases, the claim did not take. 2 men awoke in their graves with a terrible thirst and changed the fabric of Inferno forever.
One was a man named Thakrar. Fabrics flowed from his loom like rich wine. All who gazed upon his work knew that it was good and divine. They called him the Spider, for his mastery over the weaving of threads, the weaving of words.
The other was a builder named Luban Lanius. They called Ta, the Shrike. Dianthus and Luban found one another in that apocalypse, and they found others like them, those the river had claimed and spat back out again. Together, Dianthus and Luban began to rebuild their lost city, guiding the others who came back for their home. Dianthus's grand artistic visions and Luban's skill with hammer and muscle helped this reborn inferno flourish, as did the reborn who inhabited it. To commemorate their accomplishments and their friendship, they constructed a noble archway in the heart of their new city to serve as a threshold for the glimmering river that had gifted them their mysterious immortality.
But the Shrike was not satisfied with Tada gifts from the river. As nights turned to months, turned to years, he grew jealous of Dianthus. How well he taught the other undead, how he found a name for them. Vampire. How he wove a tapestry with ideas and rules that all could follow. Luban wanted to be the only one who built. He could not bear the ease with which Dianthus made this new world his craft, his skill, his art. One night, under the archway, Luban ambushed Dianthus. Tada teeth tore into his veins as he tried to bleed him of his unrunning blood. But the strong and mighty spider did not succumb. The 2 vampires fought fiercely and viciously until the sun rose and all their friendship had turned to ash.
Both of them were forced to retreat, but that was not the end of their strife.
For the treacherous and envious Luban planned his next attack soon after.
Dianthus would bear the scars of his former friend's attacks for the rest of his own life.
As their battles continued, Dianthus turned to the crimson tapestry he wove to protect him. He added a third and final edict. Thou shalt settle thy disputes through formal duels.
But it was too late. The fuse between the spiders and the Shrikes was lit, and all of Inferno burned. Outright war raged for decades until it ended the same place it began, underneath that tragic archway. Dianthus and Luban fought and fought and fought until sunrise claimed them and their bodies turned to ash. Since that fateful night, there have been times of unsteady peace in Inferno, but not reconciliation. Never reconciliation.
House Lanius mimics the treason of their founder. To this night, they refuse to apologize or even acknowledge what their forebear had done. A hatchet cannot be buried again if it was never excavated in the first place. And so the spiders do what we must. We caution our children and our children's children to never trust a Shrike. They are jealous and treacherous vampires who will not hesitate to burn their enemies and themselves in the light of a dying sun if it means their petty spite shall be quenched. And so I say to you, the four of you, never trust a Shrike, lest you become the thorn that they impale on.
This conflict goes very deep, far back beyond any of us standing here, it seems.
Seir says, quietly acknowledging the story. He is piecing together all of these different aspects of the politics between Lanius and Thakrar. And they do make sense. And as he ponders on his next question, he kind of just fixates on Ro to gauge this reserved person's feelings, emotions, the history of their ancestor laid bare. What bubbles up in Ro's heart? Their face, even.
There is a small, very, very small vibration from the center of Ro's web that you can feel because you're looking for it. You can tell that there is a seething anger beneath this tale that Ro is telling you. It's personal. It is so deeply personal.
And Seir knows personal. That's something he understands very well.
And though they try, they're not very good at hiding it.
Xainan spent the whole tale looking between that beautiful blade and Rhododendron, thinking about the duel, and that someone who would hang such a beautiful blade and venerate such a weapon did not use it to fight. And as repaints this storied history of Inferno, he begins to mark out the story, the people, names and faces that he can match to what he's already seen, what he's already experienced, and what he's heard from specifically Seir about House Lanius. And he sees the distance and thinks about the Mayday call that brought them here, and wonders how these two threads tie together, because that's what the mission is for. A Shrike, and now this spider. this spider specifically. What does Rhododendron want with the Shrike? And he mulls this over around and just nods and listens and kind of kisses his teeth a few times, thinking. It's quite a tale. Old blood.
Old. You're correct. This goes back so much further than you or me or even Yara or my mother Willow. Goes back so much further, right to the founding, the beginning of our houses, of Inferno even. And were it not for House Lanius, perhaps Inferno would already be somewhere better, more honest.
So
Where
how
does,
does this
Go on.
So how does this Ren Shimizu fit into all this?
Ren was... It's an extremely unfortunate thing that happened. Ren was my assistant and pledged to House Thakrar. We took care of them. We always take care of the spiders. Unfortunately, Ren got into a fight with another artist, I believe, at the ICMA, and so, well, it didn't end very well.
A duel, you mean?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
A duel often requires formality. Spectators, it is a formal affair. What happened to Ren was... well, it wasn't formal.
So, what happens then? The duel's part of the tapestry, right? If artists, vampires, don't adhere to that, what happens? What about the fate of this other artist? Ren died, right? Was killed?
She did. She was. As far as we know. But we don't know who did it. And without that information, well, nothing can be done.
Well, then it seems like we need to find that thread. If there's anything that I've learned in the past few months, any pulling of a string from a tapestry can unweave the entire thing. So, we find that thread, put it back in place, and seal it shut.
What about our assassin? That's a thread that we can't pull on anymore, per se, but where does that lead? Why them?
Jamie was upset at House Thakrar for not protecting Ren enough. After all, Ren was pledged to our house and was killed. So I can see where that resentment comes from. But Jamie's was a unpracticed, rough passion, one that they let get the best of them.
Jamie, who was unsworn, right?
Unsworn.
Just a freelancer in this town.
No house claimed Jamie.
Interesting. And Xainan looks to Seir, knowing that Seir knows that there's more to that, and holds that thought right at the front of his mind, but does not say it aloud.
Seir meets your gaze. There's a little tiny lip curl from this confident young man when he sees that you're looking at him and he's looking at you. And he clears his throat and says, well, Lumièra is right. There's a loose thread, and unfortunately for House Thakrar, even though you are placed in this position, there is a real desire from House Lanius to understand what exactly happened. And until they find what they deem to be a satisfactory answer, I don't know what they'll do next. They didn't seem, like I mentioned, supportive of Jamie's actions. But I do not know Lanius very well. But your house does. Centuries, even.
Ro smiles, this practiced smile, leans over across their desk. Their hands touch the blade that is in front of them. One hand on the hilt, the other resting gently on the blade. As they look at you, when anything happens to House Thakrar, you will always find a Shrike behind it. That I can guarantee you. Do you not find it interesting that House Lanius is so fixated on Ren, someone who is not a part of their house?
Nova, I have a question for you. When Rose says that, how calm are each of you able to keep your faces? Because you all know from Seir that Ren was a Lanius informant. So Ro is straight up not telling the truth here. Are you all able to keep your faces schooled?
Xainan is working really hard too. It has
Okay.
this entire time.
Seir feels like a little cat that has a rat scuttering nearby. He feels like a hunter that has some level of understanding of what's going on here. Not all the pieces, but enough to be fixated and intrigued by it. He kind of wants to see this all play out. So a lot of his expression, I wouldn't say he schools any sort of like surprise or anything. He's not surprised. He understands that there's political machinations, and he's just doing what he has been trained to do by the Great Huntress, which is listen, pay attention, predict. And that is what he is doing. And he does have a small smile as he hears almost matching Ro's energy a little bit of like, listen, isn't this so interesting? A smirk. Look what I am prepared to do, a smirk. And this is an energy that Seir is matching of like, yeah, I can see that.
What about
but
Lumièra?
Sorry.
Not only is Lumièra completely calm and straight-faced, she actually makes herself comfortable wherever she's sitting at, kind of slouches back into the chair and crosses her right ankle over her left knee. And her eyes narrow almost to slits as they focus so innately on Ro. Their breathing patterns. If there's any hitch in what's going on. I actually have a gift. Gift of the Fang. I can get a +1 to study or survey. When I study someone for an uninterrupted and extended period of time, I uncover a small secret about them.
Oh, okay.
However, I will say, after I use this move, I can't do it again against them, and you will be inoculated to my analysis from this point on and learn how to guard against me. So I'm going to use this now.
R.I.P.
What's really laying underneath there?
Okay, so you said small secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you study Ro, you can see that you've seen Ro now with a sliver of emotion teetering underneath a practiced mask. You've seen Ro lose it completely. You've also seen them hold their own in composure. You've seen quite a lot of different facets, faces, masks of Ro in the short time that you've met Rem. And I think from having compared all of those different pieces together, you can see that there is something crucially missing as Ro talks about Ren and answers these questions, and that's any sort of feeling or emotion. There's no grief when Ro talks about Ren. You would expect that somebody who belongs to the house, you saw Ro kill someone else to defend the house. And yet when talking about Ren, another spider who had been killed out of the Crimson Tapestry, Ro doesn't really seem to care very much. You talk about pulling on this thread, this loose thread of finding an assassin, and they're not that interested.
And I think that's all you get from Lumièra in that regard, then, is one eyebrow curiously quirked. And she just sits further back in her seat and nods. Fiending. I was gonna say like fiending that she's following along in the story.
Yinghe looks confused. They look uncertain. Their hands are twisting all over their fingers. Their knees are kind of rubbing together. They're looking from side to side. And if a vampire could sweat, they would be sweating right now. In fact, a bead of it kind of rolls down their temple and disappears into their modern hanfu. And before they can help themselves, they blurt out, "I'm sorry, did you know, Ro?"
And Ro's eyes, those yellow eyes, dart to Yinghe and fixate on him. No, what?
That, maybe Ren was, and they glance left. Yeah.
And Seir immediately steps forward and it's just like, that Ren is somehow captured House Lanius' attention to a very great degree.
And Ro looks over at you, Seir, and then looks back at Yinghe. What were you really about to say?
But now that Seir has cut in, Yinghe seems to be able to intuitively take his lead and understand what he was trying to do there and says, "Nothing. Exactly what Seir was going to say. I'm just new in the city and new to being a vampire, so it's taking me a second to catch up to all the politics."
Of course. It's hard. And Ro leans back into her chair, crossing their legs together, taking on this affected, casual air to themselves.
Xainan intercedes, seeing the change in tone. Speaking of the politics, how does Ula, Kuotun, Huyan, is there another one? There's a lot of people in this town. How do they all relate to specifically you and Lanius?
Well, there are 5 major houses in Inferno, and being new to vampirism and new to Inferno, looking particularly at Yinghe and Seir as they say that, I think it's important that you know who to trust and who can trust you, after all. House Ula, you may hear them referred to as the Serpents. Well, they are the ones that are responsible for, well, if you're a religious sort of the faithful, you would want to go to them. They handle everything that has to do with, they call it magic, or some call it magic anyway, but if you believe in such a thing, House Ula can handle that for you. The other two major houses, well, one you've already met, actually, Mr. Esch. House Kuatun, the bears. The one you
Yes,
pissed
I'm
off.
familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Oh, fun.
they
Poke
are
the
responsible for feeding the entirety of Inferno. And then there is House Huyen, the foxes. Smart ones, clever ones. They are responsible for knowledge gathering, research, academic types. Them. Actually, House Huyen, I do advise that if you have time, maybe go and talk to them. They're good friends of House Thakrar, and so worthy of your trust. But
So
I will
your
say,
relations with all of them seem square, other than Lania's?
more or less, the houses we keep to our different niches, our roles within Inferno. We don't encroach upon one another, and we help each other out. House Lanius, of course, doesn't seem to appreciate the help that House Thakrar is trying to offer everyone.
The tapestry.
Exactly. If there are no rules to abide by, if there's nothing to govern our communities, then, well, then we repeat history, and people die when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
We don't want that. So,
No.
in what way can we be of service to you?
Well, allow me first to patch up everything between you and Anugata.
Much appreciated.
I can figure out a way for you to meet Anugata and to get into her good graces. That'll help with the bears at the very least, and truly that will be helping House Thakrar as well, because we do not want to poke the bear.
Again.
Beyond that, it seems that you have some sort of relationship with House Lanius, whatever that might be, as complicated as that might be. I encourage you to hold that with a grain of salt. And if you are so inclined to help House Thakrar, well, it would be good for us to know if there were any threats that we had to be concerned about. The Shrikes are underhanded. Knowledge is good for us.
Nothing immediately. And any concern for any relationship that I might have, I don't. I don't have a relationship with Lanius. I walked into the union meeting. I heard what I heard. I heard a threat to the little spider. And I ended that threat with the little spider alongside Nova and you. That is the full entirety and extent of that relationship. In terms of what they plan next, I've also offered that they have a great fixation with Ren Shimizu. And that they believe that they were murdered. And that they believe that it ought to be investigated. That's the extent of what I can imagine their next steps to be. Is to dig that further. So you're saying the truth.
And I appreciate that. I will say, though, that your scent can be a little deceiving. So when you go about Inferno, I recommend that you rid yourself of it.
Heard. I shall do so.
Excuse me. You mentioned that House Ula is the house that does magic stuff. Would they also be able to help someone if they were, theoretically, let's say an aspiring magician, but the magic is not working the way they thought it would?
I'm not very good at all of that, but Yeah. House Ula, the serpents, should be able to help you with that. If you go to the temple, the abbot should be able to see you. When you speak to the abbot, though, and don't take this the wrong way, but I would advise you to be a bit more respectful in your interactions with them. They are older than everyone in Inferno, including the current leaders of all of the houses. They know a lot, and they have a lot to offer.
Oh, okay. Sorry, no disrespect was ever intended. Just ignorance. I promise. But that's noted, and I'll make sure to conduct myself properly. I'm actually quite familiar with how to, common courtesy in temples and whatnot.
What kind of magic do you aspire to?
Well, it seems like in Inferno it would be laughable to think people can teleport. Or throw blades of shadow. That doesn't... I mean, theoretically, right?
And Ro quirks an eyebrow at that, because they have never heard of anybody who can do these kinds of things before. But these strangers aren't from here, and they seem to have come from a place that they're not willing to talk about. So I think Ray is suspending rare disbelief to a healthy degree, listening to Yinghe. And more than anything, I think is like intrigued and amused by it. And so they nod. They don't shut Yinghe down or anything. Well, I suppose stranger things have happened. After all,
Yes.
Vampires didn't exist until the Red River made it so.
It seems to be. Thank you for your insights. And, as far as trustworthiness goes, is it safe to assume that House Ula is to be trusted? That House Thakrar is on good terms with him as well, like they are with Huyen?
Good is a relative term, I would say, Yinghe. But House Ula can be trusted as far as faith goes. Let's say that.
I see. Okay. Thanks. I think I know where I'm gonna go next.
Seir looks behind at Yinghe and feels a little pang deep in his chest. It sounds like they're struggling. And that pang in his chest blooms to worry and concern, and something he would like to help with. He just kind of sits there fiddling with the red thread on his finger and turns back to Rhododendron, where Rem is sitting at the main table in this room, office.
And Ro stands up, pushing their chair back, their hands on the beautiful wooden desk in front of them. And they look to each of you in turn, giving each of you the care and attention that you deserve as guests of House Thakrar. And they say, for thanks for helping the house, for helping the spiders, and to help you in whatever it is that you wish to do next, I would like to offer you the opportunity to use the House Thakrar name in your activities. Believe me, it will help you to gain access to information, locales that you may otherwise not have if a house does not claim you. I hope that you will use this information to benefit not only House Thakrar but also Inferno.
You said helping the house helps you, right?
Of course.
And I'm in your debt, so whatever helps. And Xainan looks Ro straight in the eyes unwavering, unafraid that he might reveal something, because there's no lie when he shows that he does want to specifically help Rhododendron. The reason is not plain, but he does want to help. He believes it's the right thing to do.
I have another question, if you wouldn't mind answering it, Rhododendron. Is there anyone among the Shrikes who might be known as just the Shrike? I remember from the bloodbath when all of the leaders of each house were named, the leader of Lanius was referred to as the Builder, not the Shrike.
And Ro steels themselves for a moment. Their hands already on the desk clench it a little bit tighter, and their jaw tightens. Where have you heard that title?
All of you have different animals associated with you. The spiders, the bear. Surely logic follows that there would be the Shrike. No?
Not every house follows this naming convention for the members of their houses, but logical. I think you'll get to know the Shrikes a little bit more as you make nice with all of the houses, gather your information.
So that's a no. There isn't just a Shrike.
And Ro looks you up and down, Xainan, calculating, trying to ascertain what it is that you know, the extent to which you have any sort of knowledge about House Lanius in this regard. And after a very uncomfortable silence, Ro squares their shoulders. There is a Shrike. But if you ever meet them, you'll wish you hadn't.
Noted. So it isn't the Builder.
No. The Builder, have you noticed, is a Dithi.
Mm-hmm.
Leader
Quite a
of House
presence.
Lanius.
She's, quite scary.
Yeah.
Ding! Lumièra, it's your phone.
My apologies, 1 second.
You check your phone and you see that you have a notification, a reminder for an event that's about to occur in 30 minutes. The title of the event is Psych 601 with Professor Toyin Ifueko.
Well, my apologies, Ro, Nova. But it does seem as if I'll be getting acquainted with House Suian a bit faster than I anticipated. Apparently, I have a psychology class at Inferno University in about 30 minutes, so...
Oh,
All right.
will you be okay?
Of course. I'll catch up with you
Okay.
later.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you back
be-
at the house.
Be safe, Lumièra.
Enjoy your
Always.
lecture. And for all of you, if you'd like to talk about the Shrike, we can meet back here later, once you have completed all of your tasks. And hopefully the other houses don't see you as a nuisance.
I will work to alleviate that particular reputation.
Understood. I'll be very respectful to the abbot, the venerated and eldest abbot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't cause problems.
You do not.
And Ro will walk over to the door of the office and will open it and escort all of Nova out of her office and into the rest of the Thakrar Haveli.
Mm-hmm. As everyone's going out, does anyone have any final lingering comments or questions they'd like to ask the spider before you're dispersing to the wind? Okay. Yinghe has one. They're one of the last to come out of the office, but they pause at the threshold and square their feet back to look at you. Puppy dog. Yeah, they bark. They bark like a dog. No. Surprise, they're a werewolf. Yinghe turns back to you, Rhododendron, and they say, like, they're not sure if they should say this, but then some steel within them compels the words out of their mouth. Is there anything in particular that House Thakrar wants? You mentioned Kuwatun wants to feed people, Ula wants to guide people magically and spiritually. What about Thakrar?
House Thakrar wants to unite Inferno. It's not our official mandate or edict. We are responsible for entertaining the city. But we have bigger ambitions than that. We see a brighter future for Inferno. And I hope that you'll help us reach it.
I see. That does sound nice. Thank you, Rhododendron.
Thank you, Yinghe.
The shadow nods and goes. And strike Team Nova as you round the corner back into the courtyard again, leaving Ro on the threshold. We linger on the spider's face. As soon as these newcomers vanish, what emotion settles over you?
It is unease. There is a lot of missing pieces to this new group that has shown up. The four of them know things that they shouldn't, having just arrived in Inferno. They aren't entirely forthcoming about their own backgrounds, motives, which Ro doesn't entirely mind. I mean, the spider is used to working in affectations and implications. But there is something unsettling about this new group of people that Ro isn't quite sure whether they can trust them or not. Whether these people are truly here to help them and House Thakrar, or whether they are here to dismantle everything that Ro has worked so hard for.
Well, either way, Ro. Does it really matter? What matters is that you have a task you must get done. The obstacles are inconsequential. They've always been. That's always been our house's way. Perhaps these four will help. Perhaps these four will hinder. No matter what, you'll be able to use them if they're useful, and eliminate them if they're not.
After all, blood comes first. Always has. Always will.
Strike Team Nova. You've rounded the corner, you've re-entered this flourishing, blooming, flowering courtyard. The waxing moonlight pours in through this open sky above your heads, painting everything in a silvery hue. You have a moment by yourselves to touch base before you split off.
Ray is lying.
You took the words directly from my mouth. And if they're not lying directly, they're lying by omission.
And they're guarded. There's a secret.
Guarded as all get out. Oh no, there definitely is one. Did you notice when they were speaking about Ren Shimizu?
Hmm.
What? Did I miss something?
When we talk about sing,
Mhm.
there's pain, there's hurt, there's loss, there's grief behind it, remorse. For someone who was supposed to be as important to House Thakrar as they were, Ray showed nothing.
Oh.
Nothing.
Jamie Shimizu is a lot of things. Reckless, headstrong, fueled primarily by their most surface level emotions and driven by grief and anger. They're not a liar.
So, do you all think that maybe a DT's suspicions were right? That, maybe Willow or Rhododendron is the one that killed Ren?
I do think that I am far more inclined to believe that Ro had something to do with Ren's death, especially with Lumièra's assessment.
I'm gonna have to say the exact same. If they don't have anything to do with it, they for damn sure know who did.
Especially for a house that has been historically dealt with a lot of betrayal of some sort. They seem pretty blasé about a artist that might have murdered one of their own, an assistant to the air spider. So I don't know.
I was just thinking about that duel. How honor was so important following that crimson tapestry. And yet somehow, if they're attached to that death, that secretive murder, there's a different side to them that we have not seen yet.
They kept saying blood comes first. And Lumièra starts pacing back and forth. Pacing back and forth as she's thinking. Blood comes first. Now, I don't know about you, but my entire thing was uniting Inferno through House Thakrar, and then found out that someone who was supposed to be in allegiance with us was actually working with our mortal enemy. There'd be a lot of animosity there.
But wouldn't Rhododendron just challenge Ren to a duel?
That would seem to be the most... I mean, I don't know if the rest of you agree, but that would seem to place them more above board based on the Crimson Tapestry. So unless there's something about that particular... about Ren and about that whole situation that even the formality of a duel can't solve, but only an assassination. I mean, when do you assassinate someone? To silence them, right?
Exactly.
Jamie...
You can't do it the right way.
Yeah.
Like, if you say don't want to speak about a complicated something. Something was complicated about our Shrike. And we know there's a tie between them.
Lumièra starts pacing back and forth again, deep in thought.
Maybe we can use this opportunity of meeting some of these other houses.
Yeah.
Figure out what their perspectives are on this. It might give us a better picture.
I agree. But we should probably try to be more subtle about it than I was back there.
It's okay. It's your
word
first
might
time.
get around that we're poking around. Yeah, sorry about that, you guys.
No, it's okay.
More than fine.
I'm still learning, but I'll do better next time. I promise.
You're fine, Yingha.
World's different when you can't cling to the shadows, right? It's alright.
Yeah. Thanks, Xainan. Thanks, Lumièra. And thanks, Seir. I miss clinging to the shadows. The shadows are nice. They're cold and they're quiet. Moon, too. I like the moon. The shadows feel different here. They're not as alive. They don't talk.
So, we all have our assignments.
They don't talk?
Hmm?
The shadows?
They talked back home. Not with
yes.
words, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
In song
Just...
and theme.
That's lovely.
So we all
Lumièra, you were saying...
have our assignments. I have
Yes.
class in a few.
I gotta go make nice
Xainan,
with the
you
bear.
have to clean up your mess, please.
Yeah.
And
It's not my fault
Lumièra,
she left her bike running.
you and your sticky fingers could have just left it, but yet here we are again, repeat of sea,
In my
heaven,
defense,
and repeat
I
of the
thought
wild sea.
she
And
was calling me.
Yinghe, Seir.
Mm-hmm.
Lumièra just turns her attention away from Xainan at the moment, right back
He
on
takes
the
the
mission.
not subtle hint.
The jackhammer of a hint.
right back into formation again. Okay. You two are digging into dangerous grounds. I need you both safe.
I'll go with you, huh?
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that would be okay.
Y-
Obviously, I'm going to meet the abbot. I will be more subtle, but hopefully we'll learn more about everyone else's perspectives about this feud between the
Yeah.
Shrikes and the spiders.
And find out more about your magic, right?
Yes, it's
Lumièra
different
kinda-
here.
Tenses at that before directing her attention right back into Yinghe, staring him directly into his eyes. Sometimes, when things are sealed, we have to work our way around them to fix our problems. Maybe sometimes, magic is not the answer.
Okay.
Just be safe.
Seir narrows his eyes at Lumièra. What a truly uncharacteristic thing for Lumièra to say out loud.
Yeah.
Yinghe also looks confused because they also don't think it's characteristic of you, but they nod. I appreciate you looking out for me, Lumièra, and
Yes.
same for you. I know that Huyen and Thakrar seem to be allies, but, well, if we can't trust Thakrar, we probably can't trust Huyen either, right? Even though we're supposed to be helping Rhododendron.
I think we trust each other. That's what
To
we
be
have
completely honest, I will trust knowledge before most other things.
Mm.
So, I have
Speaking
a
of
lecture to
knowledge,
get to.
you have a class to get to.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yes.
you and Xainan looks to Seir have what's ahead of you. What is here to help with? And he glances fleetingly over to Yinghe before taking a deep breath, straightening himself up, spinning around. And I'm gonna go to a diner or something.
Yes. Strike Team Mova, you split off. Seir and Yinghe go off in one direction, Lumièra another, and Xainan the third. Before we pan to black on this, Lumièra, on your way out of the Haveli, as you go from this inner courtyard to an outer courtyard before you hit the street again, you hear a voice broach the shadows in a little vestibule next to you. Lumièra, right? And stepping out of the shadows is the littlest spider, whose life you saved. Yara.
What
Hey.
are you? Are you okay?
Listen, two things. Yeah, I'm fine. Just two things, and you didn't hear either of them from me, okay? Thing number one, just a thank you again for saving my life, or whatever. And as a gesture of thanks, I guess some would call me a musician. I prefer whatever. I just think labels are trite. But either way, I have like an album release party or something in a few weeks, and here. And they hold out a card, an invitation to this album release party. Kind of shove it in your hands. You're invited, and so are your friends if you wanted them to come. You know, it's gonna be pretty low-key.
Thank you. I will make sure that this gets to the rest of my friends, and I'm glad you're safe. And Lumièra kind of like opens up her spell book that sits on her like off of her chain and just like kind of tucks it into it and closes it.
Yara kind of nods. You don't get anything from her expression except the vague sense that she's pleased, even though her face does not betray it. And then she says, a bit more seriously, the second thing, listen, I don't know what my sibling wanted to talk to you about in there, but just tread carefully. Okay? You see, the thing about spiders is you think you know where they are because you're looking at them, but what you don't realize is that you've stepped inside a web that you can't see. So just be careful.
I'll heed the warning. And Lumièra kind of smirks, nods her head curtly, and then turns very sharply on her heel to her class. While texting both Seir and Xainan at the same time, letting them know what just happened in this interaction.
You send off the text, goes off into the internet. And we pan off away from the Haveli, and we hold on that almost full moon. And we're gonna go to break. Thank you all so much for tuning in so far. We'll be back in just about 10 minutes for whatever Strike Team Nova's splitting off to do. I'm very excited to meet the other leaders of Inferno. Hang tight for a word from our sponsors and our adorable break screen. We love you so much. Bisho, Bisho. Howdy, Transplanters. You know what time it is. It's sponsor Connie time with a word from Hero Forge. Hero Forge has officially leveled up with kit bashing. When you become a pro member, you can place up to 20 more items anywhere on one of your Blorbos with their own independent scaling, rotation, and movement. You can make your character look exactly as they should, even if the specific clothing or accessory option isn't available at the base level. You just have to get a little creative. And because I love you, Transplanters, here's a special sneak peek at a kit-bashed version of Oblivion. Just look at those wings and that base. This would not be possible without the power of kit bashing. The combinations are literally endless, and you can print your kit bashed Blorbos as plastic minis, standees, digital STL files, or even Hero Forge's brand new color statuettes. Color statuettes are twice the size of a regular mini, and just look at this. I mean, look at how massive this is, and especially in comparison to a regular mini, you can really get into all the nooks and crannies and details that wouldn't be as apparent on a regular sized mini. Just look at how Oblivion dwarfs Oka here. And also, if you're a GM, consider busting out one of these bad boys during a boss fight to really get your players shaking in their boots. Oblivion agrees. Unlock the true power of Hero Forge with a Hero Forge Pro subscription starting at $3.99 a month. Get in there and start creating at bit.ly/transforge. Now, let's get back to the show. Or more likely, just more of the waiting room. Trust in her will.